Alright guys, welcome back. So we have finished detailing this part of the garment. We can go ahead and do some more interesting stuff on the jacket now. Okay, our jacket is right here. Okay. So let's switch to it by clicking on it. Okay. So let's move on to first of all separate those patches into different polygroups by going to polygroup, and we can go for auto group with UV, right? Now the reason we can do that is because they do have UVs. Okay, I'm going to separate those two patches because I don't really want them to be destroying my zero measure, because these guys are actually sticking on these lines, and that's going to cause some trouble because they are now manifold geometry. So I'm going to go ahead and do a split hidden by going to subtool, split, and we have this split hidden right here. Alright, now let me actually go hide this guy. We can deal with it later, right? So oops, this guy. So we have this full body garment. I'm gonna go ahead and start detailing some of the parts. The first thing I want to go for is its collar here. I want to create a sort of winter jacket, kind of like, you know, effect, so some fur on it would be nice. Okay, so in this stage we're still doing geometry. Now there is a way to use fiber mesh to do that, right? My personal opinion about fiber mesh is that it's kind of like in an awkward position that you use it in ZBrush, and then what do you, can you transfer it to Maya? Can it be Dynamesh used in dynamic simulations or things like that? So there are other tools like XGen that could do a better job on that part. So when we got a chance, we can actually introduce you XGen later on. But for now, let's just stick with the geometry way, which is still needed a lot in the industry anyways. So I'm going to go ahead and do a zero measure here on this guy, right? It's going to be, let me use my shortcut, but it's actually underneath geometry. Geometry, right? And zero measure right here. Okay. I'm going to use my shortcut, zero measure. I'm going to use the target poly count to be 5, should be good actually, and just do zero measure. Okay, that's going to give me, oops, oh, I isolated it by Control Shift and click on it, but I haven't split it yet. So let's do a split hidden underneath split. Split hidden. Alright, now we have separated the mid body part from the sleeve, oh sorry, the collar. Let's go ahead and do the measure. This is going to give me a much better topology for that. I'm going to give it thickness, so BDM, and I'm going to use extrude. Okay, extrude all polygons. I'm going to extrude this up a little bit and go to the back, change my target to poly group off, right, and extrude it downwards, holding down shift to change that to a moment. And then I'm going to also extend it out a little bit. So here extrude it again, but target will be poly loop. And by the way, to have this menu out, just holding down space while your cursor is on any of these faces. Now you can click and drag to, you know, extrude out a thickness like that. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and extrude this middle part out using Polygroup Edits. And this is going to allow me to extrude this polygroup but not the same polygroup from the side, because if you do polygroup R, it's going to extrude also the thickness here. But if you choose island, if you choose polygroup island, you can actually have it go up only on this polygroup that is actually not physically connected to other polygroups. Okay. Alright, now I'm going to give this part some UVs. It's very easy to do. Just go to Z plugin, UV master. Let's just go ahead and do polygon and unwrap, and it's done. Okay, so now if you want to check, you can go to UV map and morph UV. Okay, now somehow they highly recommend you to work on clone for some reason. As you can see here, that's the same button underneath the UV master. It seems to be okay without that, so why not, right? So let's just do it right here. So after that, I'm gonna actually apply some detail on this model, but before we do so, we can also Control D to subdivide the model a few times. Control D is underneath geometry, divide. Alright, cool. So now I'm gonna Control Shift. Actually, let's go to move. Right, press W, Control click on this guy here to give it to mask it. Oh, I actually want it to be isolated, so I don't want this part on the side here. So I'm gonna say Control Shift, click on this guy, and since they're not connected, I can actually do auto group underneath Polygroup. So that's gonna allow me to separate those two guys based on their connectivity. Okay. You can press Shift D to go to lower subdivision level, or D to go higher. That's basically what this slider is. When you Control D, you get one more level. Oops. Right, when you Shift D, you go to lower level, D to go upper level, like that. Anyway, so now I'm gonna Control Shift and click on this guy and mask it. Control Shift, click to invert, and Control click to reverse the mask. Or you can also go W and Control click on the top face. That's also gonna just mask everything else but that group you clicked on. Okay. Now holding down Control and click on the model a few times to blur the mask we're having. Alright, now let's go ahead and apply noise. It's going to be underneath surface, noise, and then I'm going to go for a alpha. And I have downloaded a few images from the internet. Those are the 4 images. We can choose some of those guys to, use as alpha. Not sure which one should I go. Maybe in this guy here. Alright, and we're not seeing anything yet because first of all it's not big enough, so let's change that size. Actually not small enough, and also not strong enough. But also I'm seeing those very noisy noise. That's because it's also applying a noise on it. I'm going to lower down the mix basic noise to 0, so we're not mixing the basic noise. Now we have some stretching part. Now the reason for that is because we're using 3D projection, so we change that to UV. Okay, now we can go ahead and change the alpha scale to define the size of the alpha, and then the strength to define how strong it is. Okay, now this is not super important. All you have to really take care of is the size of the alpha. Okay, so when you're happy with that, you can hit OK. And then we're gonna go for a mask by noise. What this does is gonna mask the noise, or convert the noise into a alpha. I'm going to use actually another way to bump them out, which is going to be underneath surface deformation, and then inflate them to the other direction. Okay, that's going to allow me to really control, how much I go here, without too much worrying too much about the intensity here on the surface value here. This is more controllable. Okay, and also it's bulging out because it's inflate. Alright, now before I turn off or get rid of the mask we're having, I'm going to go for BSH, which is the snake hook brush. That's going to allow me to actually drag some of those things out, right? So we can use that to maybe make the contour look some more interesting. Let's give it a little bit more variation here. Now keep the mask there so you have some variations when you drag things out. I guess you can also do it without the mask, just personal preference then. Okay. Oops. You can constantly change the size of the brush to get different sizes. I don't quite like that, so smooth that out a little bit and redrag it. Cool. So yeah. So that's one of the ways we can use geometry to create this very detailed fur-like pattern on any surface. Now the key is you have UV, so you don't have stretching happening. You have a consistent UV, right, just on that one patch. And then also you do have polygroup to define where exactly you want them to be happening. And that's it. It's not a very difficult technique, right? And it can get decent results fairly quickly. So I'm going to do that here on the edge, just drag out some of the contours. You can also drag the inside if you wanted to. I'm not going to elaborate that. I think it's quite cool already. Maybe those are sticking out too much, so smooth them a little bit to shrink them in. Right. Cool. Whoops, make it a little bigger maybe. So you can keep changing the size of the brush to get more variation, I guess. I'm just gonna do this real quick. Now those, again, these are just for preview, right? If you wanted to use this geometry, it's impossible to do this geometry in use this in game engine. It can be used in render, but rigging could be a problem. So eventually you can probably just make a normal map from it. Anyway, so that's gonna be this part. Right, now we're having a really organic looking color here. Okay, I can clear the mask. Alright, so let's move on to detail a little bit of this main body part in the next tutorial. Okay, thanks for watching. See you next time.